Alright, so do you remember that Randy Orton match? You know the one, it was a WWE pay-per-view and he really failed to ignite the crowd with his logical, methodical build, but everyone still popped huge at the end when he hit the RKO? Of course you do, it's literally 95% of all the matches he's ever had. The man is so good, he's made an entire career out of casually breezing through his usual routine in total, self-satisfied defiance of the evolving pace of pro wrestling. Whatever the modern worker is, he is the spiritual opposite of it. And what he lacks is explosiveness. And what explosiveness is, well, hard to describe. It basically relates to a wrestler's ability to hit fast and hit hard out of virtually nowhere. To go from point A to shattering your jaw at point B before you've got any idea what's going on. Pure, distilled adrenaline. My name is Adam Cleary and these are the 10 most explosive wrestlers of all time. Number 10, Pac. Possibly one for another list, but Pac might actually be the greatest pro wrestler on the entire planet right now. Missing from many year-end lists on the basis of his schedule and the reduced profile of Dragon Gate, when he does wrestle, it's very hard to make a counter-argument. Here you are trying to, here's me paying no attention. Even when Pac performs the most static of rest holds, he finds a way to make it interesting and to make it matter. Then when his opponents eventually get out of them, he looks genuinely annoyed because he knows he must now unleash an awesome repertoire of which the scum in attendance are not deserving of seeing. And when he does unleash said repertoire, he does it with a masterful level of control. Because too many wrestlers don't know how to catch, Pac circumvents this by landing his aerials with inch-perfect precision, avoiding the need to be caught by simply getting all of it and landing on his feet. He also takes the best head bumps in all of wrestling too, by planting his skull onto the mat and using his propulsive energy to flip in a way that looks less contrived and more like actual death. Number 9, The Undertaker. Big baddie boogie daddy red taker man was such a great character wrestler that he didn't have to do much else to make an impression. In the early 90s, his chilling, stalking presence got him over years before he revealed himself to mainstream audiences as some kind of super worker. Despite being a zombie mortician, Taker was one of the most believable performers ever. That's because the way he propelled himself off the ropes was more terrifying than any time he rolled his eyeballs into the back of his head. He was an expert rope runner, the best ever. At times he stretched them back so far that it looked like a 2K glitch, and he used the resulting momentum to unleash a jaw-dropping aerial assault. His diving plancha was outrageous, impossible pro wrestling theatre that was both majestic and powerful. I mean, just look at the size of him and look at how high and far he gets. It's like throwing a school bus off a cliff. Number 8, Shingo Takagi. If The Undertaker was the greatest ever to run the ropes, then Shingo Takagi is the best to do it now. Meaning that I guess he, not Bray Wyatt, is The Undertaker's spiritual successor. It probably was a bit of a plot hole, but Gedo's decision to debut Shingo as a junior heavyweight was also a masterstroke. That awe-inspiring pumping bomber lariat looks gruesome enough when it fails to decapitate Tomohiro Ishii, but when it dislodges the skull of a show, it makes for proper pulsating gladiatorial pro wrestling. He's as good soaring through the sky as they are as well, which again was perfect booking on Gedo's part. In the Best of the Super Juniors final, he cannoned off the ropes before crashing into Will Osprey with a somersault plancha so impossible that the guardrail physically punished him for trying to defy physics. Number 7, Masato Yoshii. Tiny little bit of a throwback this one, but this man's explosiveness was so searing in its pace, even this generation hasn't yet caught up to it. He is a talent that makes a mockery of the old worm-brained arguments of size automatically driving drawing power. Dragon Gate in the mid-2000s became the cult sensation among hardcore US fans. Through the company's partnership with Ring of Honor, the Warp Speed Puro Lucha in-house style saw Dragon Gate rise to prominence as the import of choice. Yoshii was a speedball so jaw-dropping that he was thoroughly, gloriously distraction-proof. His work never felt like some one-dimensional just get your shit in flex. He used that pace to both mystify his opponents and as a launch pad to inflict painful-looking damage. The man was a GIF wrestler well before social media willed such a thing into existence. His lung-busting sprints created the template for so much of the modern landscape. Number 6, Ricky Steamboat. Like the greatest workers, Ricky Steamboat concealed his greatest strength and only unleashed it when it truly mattered. Steamboat famously was a career-long babyface because, as a seminal seller, his sweat-drenched sympathy and palpable authentic agony cast a spell over his fans. They would always always get behind his comebacks because he was always worthy of the support. And those comebacks were incredible fusions of psychology and physicality. Steamboat, when all hope seemed lost, roared back into life by chopping the flesh off chests and using the crowd's power to lunge into arm drags from dire remote distances. Steamboat exploded into action when the crowd lit the fuse, using his charged energy to launch into one of pro wrestling's greatest ever dropkicks, the impacts of which would genuinely rattle the teeth of the first 5 rows. Number 5, Kenta Kobashi. Stop me if you have very recently heard this one before, but Kenta Kobashi as a seminal seller always had his fans get behind his comebacks because he was always incredibly worthy of that support. Now, Kobashi was arguably a better worker than Steamboat. He sold in such a glass-eyed way, and his bond with his audience was so powerful that his vulnerability felt harrowing. He'd sell and sell and sell and sell and sell and sell and sell, then roar back with the burning fire that defined his entire act. Topping it all off, a blitz of chops to the corner so fast and so vicious that it lit up the crowd as much as the chests of his opponents. The reckless suplex game that defined All Japan Pro Wrestling in the 1990s felt in his hands somehow necessary, when in grim reality it was anything but. His iconic moonsault finish, a genuine feat, looked impossible when considering the mighty bulk of his frame. And again, much like Steamboat, he made it feel like the support of the crowd fueled him on his journey through the skies. The crescendo of a Kobashi match will perhaps forever remain unsurpassed, outside of course of a poppy performance on NXT. Number 4, Kurt Angle. When this man referred to himself as a wrestling machine, it rang true. It rang damn true. There's the joke. Angle's explosiveness came from his intensity and, for his era, his unparalleled athleticism. Angle was a superb technician, and he elevated that genre by bringing a propulsive quality to one usually driven by intricate limb work. Angle had little cause to focus on his attacks. If he hadn't worked the leg into a state of agony and his opponents were somehow able to ascend the turnbuckle, he possessed the incredible crowd-popping ability to sprint up to their position and throw them into oblivion with a top rope overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Angle's sheer power allowed him to detonate his big bombs with a frightening level of force, so much so that against the best, most emotive bumpers, Rey Mysterio and Shawn Michaels in particular, he engineered super dramatic moments of genuine peril. At his best, Angle was the best. Even now, where the existence of modern wrestling renders much of his era antiquated, his charged work bursts through the screen and would belong in a utopia of a parallel universe in the cauldron of the very best New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax battles. Number 3, Will Osprey. Will Osprey is a supernatural pro wrestling talent who, over the past 12 months, has become as superb at the psychology as he is athletically. Osprey's talent is such that he can explode out of any situation. His ability to contort and maneuver his body is just incredible. At the G1 Supercard in Madison Square Garden, one of his less acclaimed 2019 efforts, mind, he took an immediate outrageous bump to put over Cobb's immense strength. Locating to the exact centimetre that an area underneath the bottom turnbuckle wouldn't damage his neck, Osprey used his explosiveness and precision to get the dynamic of his match over within seconds of the bell ringing. Osprey is famed for his opening dance sequence, in which he and his opponent exchange a series of near-miss strikes at a ridiculous speed. The explosive agility required to move across all reaches of the ring with intensifying speed is a mesmeric sight that never grows old. The so-called flash in the pan of 2016 is becoming timeless in his brilliance. Number 2, Goldberg. Goldberg wasn't a pro wrestler, not really. That this discourse has somehow now found its way into 2020, some 22 years removed from his debut, all but confirms that he was, and still is, a special proposition. Goldberg as an act worked to such perfection precisely because of this fact. He marauded through the backstage area before entering the ring. And there, without even feigning for a collar and elbow tie-up, he simply cut his opponents in half with his lunging brick wall of a spear. A move so iconic and so powerful in its snap visual that it will likely endure in the business for decades to come. Nobody, and with apologies to both Edge, Reigns, and Vicky Guerrero, has ever struck it with such awesome force as the originator. Those opponents only knew what had hit them when their rattled stomachs had collided with their spines. For a man never considered a traditional or even a good pro wrestler, Goldberg, sure as all hell, distilled the art form. Number 1, Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega is essentially the reason AEW exists. His phenomenal performances alerted disenchanted wrestling fans to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and his rare, special Ring of Honor cameos ignited the box office to record-setting extents. Somehow, though, he's failed to book himself anywhere near that level in AEW so far. But in just one sequence of a fantastic TV match, he showed everybody of his formidable, game-changing power. Against Joey Janela with the bad boy left vulnerable by the ropes, Omega used his propulsion and velocity to rock him with a V-trigger so ghastly and powered with such force that Janela was left in a state of sprawling, insta-rigor mortis. That this will have stunned or surprised a lot of viewers of the product is an indictment of AEW's first year of existence. And while yes, it's understandable to want to hold back on him for now, he is simply too special, too explosive to ever feel normal. So there you have it, those are the 10 most explosive pro wrestlers of all time, read to you by a man who, the last time he exploded, I'm not gonna do that joke. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But in the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I have of course been Adam Cleary, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.